ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we continue from our previous class. We were discussing the four functions of the mind, though Western psychology speaks of three functions, that is, thinking, feeling, and willing, willpower. And what is the connection between them? The Upanishads go a bit deeper, especially when you see the yoga side of Indian philosophy, or Vedanta, of course, accepts all that yoga proposes, but it goes a bit further. So, Upanishads, on which the entire philosophy of Vedanta is based, and also to a certain extent the yoga philosophy of Patanjali, broadly they accept four functions of the mind as opposed to the three functions accepted by Western psychology. And the difference is the extra function that we will discuss is that of meditation, which is unique to the yoga philosophy, emphasized by the yoga philosophy. So we have thinking, feeling, and willing as the accepted modes of the mind, which are normally accepted by Western psychology. They form the basis of Western psychology, in fact. So, thinking, which is known as cognition, feeling, which is also known as emotion, these are the two important faculties. And there's one more faculty which converts thinking and feeling into concrete action, that is conation or willpower, which is popularly known as willing. Thinking, feeling, and willing. So these have been universally accepted by all psychologists as the fundamental functions of human mind. But to this, there is one more function which is not exactly a function, it is the basis of all these three, thinking, feeling, and willing, which has been discussed by, especially by Patanjali, which is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, is the power that the mind, the special power or the unique power that the human mind develops as a result of concentration, which is also known as chitta vritti. Chitta means the mind stuff. I've discussed that several times. What is chitta? The mind stuff, the which includes old memories, past memories of not only this life but the previous life as well. So they are translated by Swami Vivekananda in his wonderful book Raj Yoga, which is one of the best commentaries on the yoga system, the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So he has translated it because these Sanskrit words, they cannot be translated. When you say chitta, what exactly does it mean? Does it mean the mind or does it mean the mental functions? So every word has been defined precisely in the Yoga Sutras. Even the second sutra says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is nothing but control of the chitta vrittis. Vrittis means literally it means whirlpool. It can also mean thoughts. So thoughts were compared to waves. Much before we disputed, the scientific community discussed whether particles, whether it's the universe of particles and waves, the wave-like motion as well as the particles. So what is the difference between matter and energy? So these discussions were going on, but nobody had thought of thoughts as a kind of energy, which according to Vedanta, especially according to yoga, is. So if there is energy involved, it has a wave-like function. It has been compared to a wave. Vritti literally means waves. So when you drop a stone, that popular example is given, when you drop a stone on a placid surface of a lake, it gives rise to ripples. And they are in fact waves, concentric waves. So also all the suggestions, what the mind receives from through its senses, it creates this, it sends out as ripples. That was what we discussed in the previous class. So it sends out as a reaction to that stone which is falling on the uh, mind stuff. It sends as a reaction thought waves, and that reaction is our reading of the universe. So, as I said last time, I very clearly mentioned that you see the universe as the vrittis are. The vrittis show you exactly your idea or your reading of that universe. So everybody sees the universe in a different way, though they may have the same similar sense organs, similar inputs, they may see the similar scene, but the persons who visualize it or who react to it are different because of the different natures of their mind. So when that happens, person A, person B, and person C, when he or she reacts to these external inputs, though they are seeing the same scene or the same, they are sitting near each other, they are seeing, observing the same thing, but their reading of the universe, what they see, what subjectively what they experience, is different in all the three cases. That depends on how they react to the inputs. So that is chitta vritti. So when you stop this, they say the mind has infinite capacity. It has capacity to think rationally, cognition. It has a capacity to feel emotion. It has a capacity to develop its willpower and act upon the thoughts and feelings. See, just thoughts and feelings will not be of any use. You make a resolution, you think deeply, but then unless you act, unless you develop your willpower so that you can convert your thoughts and emotions into actions, concrete actions, it is of no use. So, willpower is accepted by Western psychology, but this fourth power of the mind, which has been introduced by yoga in the second sutra itself, is the power that is generated in the mind because of chitta vritti nirodha. The reaction is controlled. So when you control your reactions, which is very natural, when there is chitta, when in the mind stuff, which is compared to a lake, a stone is dropped, the vrittis that are created, the concentric circles in wave form, it is a reaction to that input, sensory input that the mind gives. So, depending on the reactions, you see the universe differently. Three people seeing the same scene, hearing the same sound, sitting near each other may see the universe differently and interpret it differently, depending on their sense organs, depending on their how they react. So, Chitta Vritti Nirodha means the second sutra of Patanjali very clearly says when you subdue, when you stop these waves from creating vrittis in the mind develops a wonderful power. It 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 enables, that is the fourth power of the mind, that is thinking, rational thinking, clear thinking gives you one power. Say that is responsible for developing your mind. Say it's one fourth of your entire mind. According to Western psychology, it will be one third. Then you have the power of emotions, and how you develop your emotions will develop your mind emotionally. So the emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, they say IQ, EQ, and then they have come now with what is known as SQ. But logically, we should also define the mental quotient or the mental power as the capacity of the mind to will correctly, to use the willpower That is very important. It is known as kratuhu. In the Upanishads, it is known as kratuhu. The thought, the thought that is thinking or feeling, which when converted, when it is joined with the willpower, it gives rise to action, good or bad. If the emotion is bad, the action will be bad. If the emotion is good, noble, the action will be good. So also if the thoughts are good, if they are rational, if they are irrational, then the thoughts will be, the actions will be bad. But in both the cases, good or bad, thoughts and emotions by themselves, they are not creative in their functions. They have to be attached to what is known as willpower. So this willpower is accepted by Western psychology. So they say a properly trained mind is a mind which is rational, which has developed its thinking or cognition, is a mind which has developed its emotional side. It's not given or it's not disturbed by emotions. It is emotionally balanced, as they would like to say, emotionally balanced person. And then we have the willpower, the power of the will, which is in uh, Eastern psychology or yoga psychology known as kratuhu. Upanishads also call it kratuhu, or it is also known as sankalpa. Sankalpa means you decide something and then you pursue it and convert it into right action. Normally, it is used sankalpa. Of course, there can be evil sankalpa also. But normally, when you say sankalpa, it means good. That is why before puja, all the ritual worship you do, you start. It's puja is nothing but a technique developed by Hindu religion or Hindu spiritual tradition to develop the willpower so that you sit quietly, control the mind, sit and do. It's not the rituals, not that the rituals are going to give you some fruit or benefit. These are temptations to induce the person to do the puja. Otherwise, people think if they outsource, if they ask a pujari to do puja on their behalf, they will get the fruits and all those. These are mostly superstitions. You can't get, if somebody else does the work, you don't get the benefit. You may pay him money and expect that you get the fruits, but that's not going to happen. Actually, puja is meant for developing the willpower. That is why before every puja, before you even start, obviously the reason why you are doing puja should be very clear, the ritualistic worship. In any kind of ritualistic worship, then you have to do a ritual in the beginning, which is known as sankalpa. That means I am telling my mind, convincing my mind to strengthen my willpower so that all the good things that I'm going to do as part of the ritualistic worship of the Lord, I will be doing it correctly, not only correctly, but I will be doing it with a steady will. And till that puja is over, I will not be distracted by anything else. So that sankalpa is also something which develops the willpower. So continuously doing rituals is one way to increase your willpower. So all the three powers now, in addition to that, as I said, Indian psychology speaks of a fourth power, which is what we get when we control the mind. So apart from rational thinking, apart from balanced emotions, and apart from a highly developed willpower, there is the fourth power which supplies energy or supplies the strength to all these three other powers. That is the power of controlling the mind. The power that comes out, it is just the example Swami Vivekananda gives in his Raj Yoga is that a flowing water no doubt has lot of power, lot of strength. But if you put a dam across the river and store that water, the power increases. The capacity to generate more energy, more energy is a result of building a dam across. So, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, or the second verse of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, tells us that the more you restrain the mind, the more the power of the mind increases. So that is the fourth power. So according to Eastern psychology or yoga psychology, there are four powers of the mind, and each one of these powers represent one particular yoga. That is why we have this concept, which was first introduced to the Western people by Swami Vivekananda in 1895 when he first published the Karma Yoga, which is nothing but development of the willpower. Otherwise, what will induce you to work? It's a strong will that will induce you to do noble work in spite of all the impediments and in spite of all the opposition and other things. You need a strong will to work. So, Karma Yoga is development of one faculty of the mind. So, yoga of karma or yoga of willpower, developing willpower. Then, Gyan Yoga is yoga of developing your cognition, the thinking rational capacity. Then, Bhakti Yoga, which is the third yoga, is the capacity to control your emotion and channelize it or channelize it for a better purpose, for a noble purpose, or to channelize it towards God. So emotions are not bad if they are directed to the right object. So in this case, if you direct it to God, the same emotion which caused problems, emotional imbalances in your life, will be refined and it will be converted into a positive energy for positive mental development. So that is the third yoga, Bhakti Yoga. And then finally, we have what is known as Raj Yoga, which is also the king of all the four yogas. Because without control of mind, there is no control of thought, there's the control of emotions, thoughts, and willpower does not happen, does not simply happen if the mind is not under control. Even to rationalize, even to use your power of cognition, you need to first control the mind. A completely disturbed mind cannot think rationally. You might have noticed. Or a highly emotional, volatile person, he cannot take right decisions at the right time in his life, and that is why he suffers. So, for everything, Indian psychology or yoga psychology found that the first thing that is necessary is to first control the mind and then use it through these three yogas, Jnana Yoga. If you use that controlled mind to rationalize, to read books, to or to gather knowledge, rationalize, systematize knowledge, and use that knowledge for your personality development, then it is Jnana Yoga. If you use wisely the emotions which are running havoc in our life, it's just creating a lot of disturbance, different types of negative emotions, especially. So, even positive emotions, but if they are guided properly, directed towards what is known as Bhakti Yoga, or through the process of Bhakti Yoga directed towards God, then it becomes a positive force. So, Raj Yoga helps. Control of the mind is necessary in all the three cases. And of course, to develop willpower, you have to definitely have to make the sankalpa, that is to develop the will. You need Raj Yoga. Otherwise, Raj Yoga, if there is a restless mind, the person can't even sit, leave alone meditate. He cannot even sit quietly because he needs tremendous willpower to decide that he can hold on to a particular asana. That is what asana really means in Patanjali's yoga. The only function of asana is neither health nor, though they are side products or byproducts, asanas have been developed for different postures, for different physiological advantages that it gives. But that is a subsidiary science. That's not asana. Asana has been defined very simply and directly by Patanjali as Thiram Sukham Asanam. That posture which enables you to control your mind by sitting steadily in one posture. That is asana. Nothing more than that. But later on in that asana, so many different techniques to steady the body, and if the body is studied, the health improves. So, improvement of health is not a direct result of asana, it is something which is a byproduct of control of mind. So, many times they say asana, one should not focus too much on asana, pranayama, and all those things. Directly go to meditation because everything is included in the definition that is given of yoga and also definition of asana, sthiram sukham asanam, that which makes you steady physically, mentally, both emotionally. So that asana is not just to give you physical steadiness, though it begins with physical steadiness. It makes the body steady, which then helps us to study the other faculties of the mind. So that is how this verse which we were discussing, where the reason, volition, that is willpower, thinking, cognition, and emotion, what is their relation and how it leads to cultivation of willpower. So, next to cognition, that is the most important. That is why people, when they first take to spirituality, they start reading. They want to read. And in fact, most of the people, especially in the Western world, they believe by reading you develop spiritually, which is a myth that was destroyed by Sri Ramakrishna. He refused to go to university or college or even school to show that spirituality has nothing to do with physical, with reasoning that you can develop through books. It may help you in your secular life to get a degree, to get a job, and to develop your mind and all those things. But real Jnana Yoga is the real cognition is to see things as they are, without any bias, without any prejudice. So, that type of cognition, to just observe things as they are. So, this cognition is one of the functions of the mind, and it is closely aligned, or it leads to the development of what is known as buddhi. As I have repeatedly mentioned, according to Indian psychology, there are two uh, minds, you may say, two parts or two compartments of the mind. One is a lower mind and another is a higher mind. The lower mind is defined as manas, which can be defined as a reactive faculty, a reactive mind. It just reacts. It is something we share with animals. The sense inputs come to us and we react in a particular way. Even a dog or any cat or any animal also reacts because its manas is highly developed. Sense organs tell it when there is a danger, and it reacts in an appropriate way. So that reactive mind is known as manas, which is a lower mind according to Vedanta. There is another aspect which is known as buddhi. Now, this cognition is closely aligned to the higher function of the mind, which is buddhi, which is the decision making capacity of the mind. It is the choice making capacity. Makes the choices small and big, which completely determine the fate, our future. Our future is nothing but the choices that we have made in our life, right from childhood. What should I do now? And if we are trained properly, then we have perhaps made many good choices, and that leads to a good and noble life. But if the choices are wrong, if we are not guided properly, that's why they say buddhi has to be developed. Now, this cognition, the rational capacity, has the capacity to guide the buddhi. So that is why they say of all the four functions, first you should know what to do. For a person to uh, mm, uh, take a decision or even to make a choice, he should know the pros and cons of everything. That is why they say first develop this faculty of discrimination. One has to have that faculty of discrimination in everything that we do. Willpower comes later. To do or not to do, to be or not to be. So, this is the famous predicament before every person. Right from childhood, if our education is correct, if you have been given the right type of education, then we know what, then our buddhi is developed other than the mind. Mind is, of course, developed. Skill sets are developed. We need skill sets. But apart from that, how to use those skill sets in a proper way, in the right way, and so that it leads to spiritual progress or our own progress. So, this willpower is definitely useful, in converting our thoughts and emotions into action. But those thoughts should be correct. The process of thinking should be correct. That is why Jnana Yoga comes first. So it is closely connected to the development of our buddhi. Volition, volition means the willpower, just carries out the action. It is like subservient to our buddhi. So our mind tells us what to do and what not to do. Then the willpower starts acting. Then we decide, oh, this is the choice I have made. Now I have to stick to this choice. Right or wrong, I have made this choice right now. And my willpower will decide whether I take that choice or stick to that choice. If I made a wrong choice, our buddhi itself will tell us that this was a wrong choice. You better change the choice that you had made long ago. So you keep on changing your choices according to the how your rational capacity guides you. And of course, emotional capacity is also there. We cannot totally ignore the emotional side of the mind. So buddhi has the capacity to judge the pros and cons and help us in making the decision and find what is most desirable. As Yama told Nachiketa, the young boy, he can two things approach every human being at every stage, every minute of our life. Two things approach Shreya and Preya. Shreya means that which is really good. Prayas means that which is pleasant. So, what is pleasant may not be always good. So, pros and cons of things means to use our intelligence or use our rational capacity to judge the pros and cons of things and find what is really desirable in the long run. So, we can contemplate if the buddhi is developed, then it helps us to contemplate on the possible courses of action and depending on the situation and determine which one I have to follow. It is also has a technical name in Upanishads, which is known as Viveka. Viveka means to find out what is good, what is bad, and then tell the willpower to do what is good. So, to accomplish the purpose of buddhi, whatever the buddhi tells, it's like a driver, it directs the will, and the will flows behind the decision that you have taken. But in many individuals, we find that there is a problem. If we were rational and if the will just followed reason, then it was fine. But it doesn't always happen. There's the second faculty, emotions, which come in the way. Especially if he's too emotional and with full of negative emotions, then in spite of reason, the emotions will take the upper hand and tell the will to do something which your reason tells you not to do. So we have to repeatedly train the mind, that is what the Upanishad says, to align the emotional with the rational nature and bridge the gap so that our emotions and the rational aspect of the mind they come together and then you can will rightly. Without that, no right decision can be. That is why when there is indecision, when there is wavering, it is nothing but a conflict between our emotions and our thoughts. Our thoughts tell us this has to be done, but our emotions are dragging us in some other direction. So will do whatever it is told by reason of course, or emotion. So we have to reduce that gap. So there are now what are the factors? We discussed this briefly last time, but I'll repeat, we'll recapitulate what we discussed. That there are many factors which it's not just our own mind. You see, we are not living in an on an island. We are surrounded by other minds. And the effect of that minds of other people, whether they speak their mind to us or whether they talk with us or just their presence is enough to disturb you. I mentioned about that three-part article which were published in our Vedanta, which is the power of vibrations in our life. So vibrations are not just physical vibrations, they are thought vibrations also. And then there are other sorts of vibrations, heat vibrations, electromagnetic. So each one of them impacts the body or the mind in different ways. So when there are this uh, uh, so many factors are responsible. the vibrations, external vibrations, the external inputs, the impact of social media, impact of our simple conversations with people, the company that we keep, and then our own old habits. You see, most of the things in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they are dictated by what is known as our inherent tendencies. They are known as, by the technical word, samskaras. Samskaras means repeatedly doing certain actions creates some kind of tendency or impressions. Those wrong tendencies or right tendencies, old habits, good or bad, all the different inputs that we give, all the passions, prejudices, even listening to somebody who is uh, jealous or envious and just listening, we think, oh, it's what's the harm if somebody is coming and gossiping something or telling something about someone. It's not good. I have the freedom to accept it or not. Let him come and say, but it's not true. According to Patanjali, they create vibrations and then they become samskaras in our mind. Though we may not wish, we may think that we have been just listening, but even listening. That's why you see Swami Adbhutananda, who was a Guru Bhai of Swami Vivekananda, he said, whenever he says it is better to go and sleep rather than sit in a gathering where so many people are speaking, pouring out their negative emotions and negative thoughts. He said it will negatively impact you. Instead of that, it's better to be neutral, go and sleep. Just where sleep is better. He said, just get away from that place and better sleep. That will at least refresh you rather than just to spend some time, especially in negative company. He said because he knew there is a great psychological truth behind it. Though we may not take part in the conversation, our very presence, the vibrations will create samskaras. So there are many factors. We are not as free as we think. Free to think rightly, free. We are not free to uh, control our emotions in the positive way. We are not free because of our old habits, old tendencies, old samskaras, which we have consciously or unconsciously gathered. Of course, if they were consciously gathered, then impact will be more. But even unconsciously, if it has fallen on our ears, some remark made by somebody, and then these samskaras, they come and affect our decisions. They affect our uh, resistance. The resistance of, I mean, the willpower is not able to act because these thoughts come and disturb. So when a mind is disturbed, when it is not concentrated, that is why second sutra of Patanjali says yoga means Raj Yoga or Patanjali's yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. When you control the thoughts, though it is not an easy thing to do, then you can think in a clear uh, lake without waves. You can see everything clearly. The bottom of the lake, you can see everything. But if it is disturbed, if somebody throws stones and there are waves, in that wavy surface, you can't see through it. There's too much of disturbance to see clearly. So, clear and keen understanding can only happen when one practices Raj Yoga. So, that is why Chandogya Upanishad, we discussed that. Uh, it says, Atha khalu kratumaya purusha. Kratumaya means willpower, one who is has developed his willpower. Yatha kratum asmin loke purusho bhavati tathetha pretya bhavati sa kratum kurvita. So, verily, a person is nothing but what his willpower is. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have to use his thinking, but ultimately, the thoughts, emotions, and the control of your mind will make you do certain things. You may think you are free to do but we are not free to do what we like. We are actually influenced by so many factors around us, and that determines how we will do our actions. So he says, a person is what he wills. According to the will a person has in this world, so does he become on departing hence. So, with all the combined forces of his actions, that is why in the Ishopanishad, towards the end of the Upanishad, the Rishi is telling the person, especially when you are about to die, remember your good deeds. such a difficult thing. Because if we have the overpowering effect of our bad deeds, we have been so bad to so many people, normally those thoughts come. So the Rishi is telling in the last few verses, Kratusmaraha Kratusmara. Think of the good thoughts which you have consciously done. They may be few, but think of it. Your hope in getting a better body, a better birth, uh, on departing. We Hindus believe that there is rebirth. It's a very logical cause and effect explanation that is responsible for the law of karma. So this law of karma will decide. And obviously, if you have done lot of, uh, if you have used your willpower negatively, then those thoughts will come. And naturally, that kind of birth will what you will get. So that is why the rishis say, as a study of the Upanishads, towards the end it says, Ishopanishad, Kratu Smara. Think of your good deeds if you have done. So naturally, if a person has been constantly doing good things, then naturally that will be his last thought, or that will determine. Therefore, let him form his will. Saha kratum kurvita. He should be careful of what he wants. You cannot be random. You cannot leave everything to destiny. Just take things. You have to will rightly, correctly. In fact, the whole of education, the best definition of education Vivekananda has given, he says education is nothing but training of the will to will correctly and rightly. You say that is why some of the systems of modern child education is education through doing rather than thinking and feeling. Cultivating feeling and thinking is good, but too much emphasis on thinking, like becoming a bookworm, just going on reading, getting good grades. But if he doesn't develop the capacity to do, then that knowledge is not going to be of any use. This the Upanishads knew. That is why they say, let him form his will in spiritual education or in secular education. The rule is the same. A person is how he has developed his willpower by doing rather than by thinking. So you may have the best thoughts in the world, but what's the use if it has not been converted into willpower? So the Sri Krishna points out, again, this is from Chandogya Upanishad. Now Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, third chapter, 34th verse, there's a beautiful verse. He says, Indriyasya Indriyarthe ragadveshau vyavasthitau tayorna vasham agachet tauvya asya paripantinau. So with respect to each organ, Indriyasya, each organ has a function. Even if before it becomes willpower in our mind, first the inputs we have to be very careful about the inputs. So with respect to each sense organ, hearing, whatever we hear, whatever we see, whatever we smell, so there are two things that happen: raga, dvesha, attachment and aversion. So either you like something or you dislike. You see, our life is nothing but likes and dislikes. I like certain foods, I dislike certain foods. So any object that comes, we avoid if we don't like it. We run after it if we like. So he says, but you should have a very neutral attitude. That is the training which Sri Krishna says one should give to one's mind. There may be attachments and aversions to certain objects, certain people, certain situations, but you should not yield to them because they are enemies in one's way. Paripantino. So that doesn't mean that you have to accept everything, that you should not do what you like and you should avoid what you don't like. But the thing is not to get impacted. If whatever things come, that is how one develops willpower. The idea is if you just follow the path of least resistance, then you'll always run after the things that you like. That is how we slowly and gradually spoil the child. When the child says, I like this, we give only the things that he likes. But he is never taught to accept things that he doesn't like. Because when he grows up, when he has to face the world, an adult has to accept everything. He can't have choices. He can't say, I'll take only that which I like. You can't be a baby throughout our life. We cannot be babies throughout our life. Maybe in childhood, we will always be pampered and given what we like. But when we grow up, the reality dawns upon us that whether we like it or not, things will come to us and we have to face them. So, Sri Krishna is saying that you have to develop this systematic development of the will to avoid this too much strong likes and dislikes will resolve. It develops some kind of firm resolve in the mind. So that is how willpower is developed. And the purpose of all religious vows, fasting and sitting for puja and all the rituals, the only purpose according to Bhagavad Gita is development of this will. So you may not like to sit for long, but your mind says, no, it's better you go and lie down, or you may just relax. And it's so easy to follow the things that you like. But when you say, no, I will sit for meditation, even if my legs hurt, I'll try to see that I make a vow, sankalpa. That is why they say, before puja, you make a sankalpa that you will finish the puja, finish the ritual before you get up. It may take 1 hour, so the longer the puja, the more your willpower develops. Sometimes the puja lasts for 2 hours, 3 hours. So it's so difficult to focus on one particular thing. Same thing with studies. If a child or if a student can sit quietly and focus on his subject, like most of these great geniuses, Newton and all, they would forget whether it is day or night. They had so much willpower that was developed in them that once something they decided to, they took a sankalpa to finish some certain things. They would forget food, they would forget leisure, they would forget. So the power of will is developed. That is why they say when you do the sankalpa, it should not be broken. So, whatever a plan a person follows, whether it is for uh, physical, intellectual, say going to the gym, doing exercises, yoga, aesthetic, paintings, and developing a love for music, moral or spiritual culture, he says these vows, this sankalpa is the only factor, as Gita says, as your will is, so is your future. So everything will depend on willpower. That willpower comes from concentration of mind. So Vedanta says, in yoga says, it is the freedom of will to do what you think is right correctly, and every time you attempt to do, don't leave it half done. That distinguishes human from subhuman level. You see, at a subhuman level, they are living at the level not of buddhi, because they have not developed that willpower, the will to control the sense desires. So the animals just behave according, it is a reactionary mind that they have, a rudimentary mind which tells them reaction is everything. They say food, they just run after it. Man has the will to stop, to control himself, and tell the mind that you may like this food, but just don't jump after it. I mean, don't jump for it. So, the moral responsibility of developing the will is what the education system, or those who are responsible for education, either the parents or the teachers, for a young growing child. That is what is meant here. That once he develops the will, then he can take his own decisions. But the the environment and the training that is given to those who are in mental training or spiritual training has to be proper. They have to be based on these firm principles discovered by Upanishads and Gita. So, in human species, we find the more developed a human being is, the more his development of his mind takes place. And the four yogas are nothing but four different methods trying to develop the four different aspects of our mind. And Swami Vivekananda said, the harmony of yogas is necessary because each mind has these four capacities. If you develop one to the more than the other, then there will be some lopsided development. There won't be a balanced development. So one should be equally rational, equally emotionally balanced, equally developed in the art of meditation, which gives rise to willpower to convert all his good thoughts and emotions into actions. And the other thing is, once you develop that willpower, you act upon it. So that is karma yoga. So all the four yogas, then he can safely say, such a person says he follows the course that he has chosen for himself after careful deliberation. He may be wrong in the decision, but then his experience or the experience of others tell him that this is not the right way. I have to change my because I had not understood properly. Now that so that is why these great saints say that we learn from the mistakes of others. Everybody is, in fact, one of the Swamis, the Swami Premeshanji has written that some brahmachari was pointing out to a mistake made by somebody because of which he suffered, and he was laughing. He said, "Don't laugh. That person who has made that mistake, he is your teacher. So you should give him the same respect as you give to your guru who is teaching you good things. Because by showing he has sacrificed himself, somebody who has done that wrong deed, and that has taught you a lesson. So you should be indebted to him that if I do the same thing, I will also suffer the same consequence. So why do you make fun or why do you criticize him if somebody has made a mistake? Is he not your teacher? His mistakes he has suffered so that, or maybe indirectly or indirectly, his suffering is the cause of cautioning you, telling you not to repeat the same mistake. So, is he not doing you a great service? That's the idea. So, we have to be, whether we are right or wrong, and it can happen in our own case. As Swami Vivekananda said once, that I have learned more from my mistakes than my successes. I've learned more from pain than from pleasure. Pleasure has not taught me anything more than pain, because pain or because which is as a result of mistakes has told me or taught me what I have done wrong to suffer this pain. That is why there is a famous story about Edison, who took about 999, maybe it may not be the exact figure, but they say more than 999 times he tried different filament, different materials to design his bulb. He wanted to create a bulb, convert electricity into light. So after so many attempts, maybe in his thousandth attempt, he finally made a stable bulb. So when he was asked about his failures, normally when people interview you or people in the world, they seek an explanation for your failures than your success. That is the nature of the world. So they'll point out, oh, how did it fail? But they don't see that. So Edison had a wonderful answer. That is how they say he replied to them when he was asked about so much of energy and the time that was lost in so many mistakes that he made. So the success is great, but what about the mistakes, the costs that are involved? So he said, no, each one of the mistakes gave me the knowledge of what really does not work. So if doing this does not work, at least it has helped me that next I should not try this. So I just by rejecting all those things, I came to the right answer. So my success was paved, the way to my success was paved by this particular losses or the mistakes that I made. So Swami Vivekananda also said, it is pain or it is the mistakes that I made. I'm not regretting any one of those because each one of those has taught me certain lessons of life. And in fact, he says, pain has taught me more than pleasure. Because in his whole life, if you see, there were so many mishaps. His father died when he was young. There were so many challenges. His relatives tried to rob and deprive his family, his mother and the his siblings, and tried to drive them out of the house. He had to fight a case. So much of jealousy, and then When he comes to America, his own classmates, the members of the Brahmo Samaj, tried to, out of jealousy, tried to help the missionaries to criticize him and create trouble for him. His own friends, the Pratap Chandra Mazumdar and all. But all through his life, he says, and then his trust in some people, his trust was betrayed by some of the people whom he thought were his own, who were very helpful in the beginning, but somehow they also betrayed. So he says, life has taught me great lessons to reach the ultimate goal, of course. And pleasure, as much as pleasure has taught me, it is pain that has taught me more. So pain has been the reason why I have spiritually evolved. That is what uh, Swami Vivekananda said. Because it is because of knowing what doesn't work in this world. Till we have the experience, we think it works. It will help us. It will uh, give us security and all those things. But our own experiences, or if we are wiser, experiences of other people, that also we have to be grateful, according to Swamiji. That will help us to know what works, what doesn't work. So, though we have the freedom of doing what we want, we have to develop that willpower to do exactly after determining. It may be a wrong decision, as the Upanishad says. It's not always that the kratu or the will is directed towards the right object or the right purpose. It may be wrong, but then it gives you a chance. When it doesn't work, when the results are obvious to you, then you backtrack, then you change your decision. So there are many adverse factors. If you see here, the discussion is on the psychophysical constitution. It's not just mind, but there are other factors which affect the body also. So there are so many adverse factors. Man's life is complicated because of these adverse factors. You may simply say it is karma, but that's not the answer. Karma is because of what we did in the past, how we thought, how we acted. So if we know how to act, and then it gives us hope that if karma has was responsible for what we face now, the same if we change the karma, practice karma yoga, then develop our will, think rightly, use all the yogas and change our destiny. So so that we don't commit the same mistakes again. So, Swami, here the Upanishad says that freedom, normally the idea of freedom is to do what you feel is right. That is not actually freedom according to the Upanishads. When a child wants freedom, he wants to do what he likes. It may not be good for him, but he thinks if he is free to do what he likes, whether it is good or bad, that is freedom. Whereas here, freedom or mukti is freedom, the development of the will, so that you can do exactly what you will. Many times, as I pointed out, we may take New Year resolutions, think that we will do it, but is our will free? All these factors, our past samskaras, everything come. And this volitional activity or the development of willpower, which is the result of all our education, all the training, spiritual training, they they can be called as a special privilege of life. So development of the will through meditation. Meditation is a very powerful way to do it. That is why Swami Vivekananda says among all the four yogas, he called Patanjali's yoga as Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga is not a technical word. Raja means the king of all yogas. Because that development of willpower is the ultimate goal. Of course, the other three yogas will guide the will to go in a proper direction. Otherwise, if the other three yogas are not there to put a check on the mind, then the will can go in a negative direction. You see, all the evil people, they were also men of tremendous willpower because of their concentration, but only it was misdirected. Take, for example, the dictators like Hitler and all. Do you think their wills were weak? They were very strong people, at least till they were successful. But unfortunately, the will was misdirected. So, direction of the will is equally important. For that, you need the other three yogas. But as I said, the willpower that comes as a result of the harmonious development of uh, thought, that is Jnana Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga, the emotions, and of course, uh, the yoga of meditation, that gives rise to willpower, development of the willpower, which leads to proper karma yoga. And then we can say the will that has been refined and developed through a proper training in all the four yogas, he will make less mistakes. Not that he will not make mistakes. So then he will be accountable. He will be definitely accountable for his actions, but they will, since they are good actions, he will reap uh, whatever he sows, anyway, he has to reap. So he will go on planting good things because of the right performance of his good deeds due to a proper development of will. And then it will create, the mind will progress. That is the divine law. So, in Mahabharata also, there is a beautiful reference here which shows the impact of will, how it impacted two brothers, two group of brothers, cousins, to act in different ways, though they had the same teacher. They had the same teacher, Dronacharya, who gave the same kind of education. I don't think he was partial to either the Pandavas or Kauravas. But as I said, these various factors made them will in different directions. So that is why this is very pathetically uh, told by Duryodhana to Sri Krishna when he was on his deathbed, almost when he was defeated. So he tells Krishna, "You are responsible," because he says, "Though I knew what dharma is, the situation was such that I could not follow it. Though I know what adharma is, janami dharmam nachame pravrutti, janami adharmam nachame nivrutti. I knew just as the Pandavas knew, just as Yudhishthira knew. All of us knew what dharma is, but somehow our will did not go with our good, with what we knew, what cognition, power of cognition that we had, the power of emotion and other things overpowered it, and the will was directed in the wrong direction. So, though I knew what dharma is, I could not follow it, I could not act upon it. And though I knew what adharma is, I could not desist or resist following it. I had to follow it. So it was my willpower that is responsible for my misery and undoing. So you may tell children, do this or do not do this, what is good, what is bad. They were also told, obviously, Duryodhana was told. They were taught all the Dharma Shastras. They were taught all the same Shastras what was taught to the Pandavas. But they did not observe, or they were not told, as Swami Vivekananda said, it is easy to give directions and say, do this and do not do this. But how not to do this or how to do this, that requires training of the willpower. They would have been meaningless. These teachings are meaningless because man has no freedom of the will, or he has not developed his will to do the right thing at the right time. So, the self capacity for self determination, which we call the willpower, has to be developed and in a positive way to make our life happy and progressive. So, are there any questions? So, we'll conclude today. We're running short of time. There are a few questions. Any questions here? Next topic will be, I mean, in the same series, it will be the because willpower is impacted by what is known as subconscious level of the mind. So, what is the difference between conscious? Are we fully conscious? What does it mean to live consciously? We think we are living consciously, but many of our actions are dictated by our subconscious. So they have become automatic due to the impressions created by our past karma. So, what are the different states, the levels of consciousness? Though in Western psychology, they will definitely say it is unconscious or subconscious, and there is a conscious level. Whereas here, there are four different states of the mind which has been discussed. There has been a wonderful discussion of these things in the Upanishads because we are dealing with Vedanta now, not yoga and other things, though we now and then refer to these texts. But in Upanishads also, the four states of mind. What we discussed was the four faculties of the mind: thinking, feeling, willing, and uh, thinking, feeling, willing, and control of the mind. That is how uh, four yogas were defined. But in the mind itself, there are different levels. Many of our actions, though they appear to be consciously done, they are prompted and inspired. The thoughts from the subconscious have forced us to do these things. So, how to distinguish in the four different states that we live in throughout the course of the day, we pass through these four states. We are just oscillating between sleep, nidra, dream, and then what we call as deep sleep, dream, and waking state. These are the three. And then there is a superconscious state which we will discuss. So whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, whatever memories that are apparently in the conscious mind have their roots in the subconscious. In fact, Vivekananda said our mind is like an iceberg. So, in an iceberg, if you have seen, only 1/10 of the or 9/10 of the iceberg is submerged. Only 1/10 is visible. So he says, when you say a person is consciously acting, he is just using only 1/10 of the whole mind. The remaining is all made of subconscious, unconscious, so many different levels, which which have to be controlled before the whole iceberg has to come out. Because it is submerged, we know only the top, and we think we are safe, we are doing everything consciously, but we do not realize that our unconscious is dictating all our conscious actions. Is there any question? YouTube or Zoom? Just take the YouTube ones. Okay. Any question? Yes. Oh, the question is, please give us, of course, that will be part of the next lecture, but anyway, in whatever we discuss, based on that, I can answer this question. The question is, please give us practical tips to develop willpower. So, the best and the easiest way is to practice the repetition of the holy name. So, that is one of the most powerful techniques in all the systems, at least in Vedanta or Hinduism, the dualistic Vedanta. Repeating Repetition gives rise to development of willpower, because even in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he says the advantage of repeating certain things. See, for example, if you want to excel in anything, say if you want to just even learn typing, you have to go on repeating again and again, it becomes automatic, and then you develop some kind of excellence. So also in mental training, it is repetition of the same thing. It has been given the wonderful name or technique which is known as japa. Japa is apparently, people think it is a technique for ordinary people, illiterate people who sit in a corner, old people, to just sit and take the name of the Lord. We are far more intelligent. That's the popular feeling. We can read books, but unfortunately, by reading more books, in fact, there is more confusion, less concentration. So our wise forefathers or the Vedantic gurus knew that repetition is everything. That develops willpower. So one of the easiest and the best techniques is to develop the willpower by repeating the holy name. There are other ways also. That is why I said the the different types of pujas or rituals that you do. You make a sankalpa and you decide that, or you do fasting, you do so many things which apparently you do for the sake of doing it because it's part of your tradition. But if you really think why these different vratas and pujas and all those things, they have only one purpose in mind: to develop your willpower in a positive way, of course. So these mental modes or the hidden samskaras which are in the subconscious or unconscious mind, the only way to prevent is to negate them or to destroy them by regular practice. So it can be done by karma yoga, by doing good work, by reading good books, that is also jnana yoga. By doing good work, you develop your willpower. But of all the pujas or of all the rituals, Krishna says, all among all the vratas, I am the japa, or among all the yagnas. Yagnas means there is a ritual in Hindu tradition where you offer things into the fire. It's a fire worship. It has evolved out of the primitive fire worship of the Vedic rishis. Everything was uh, evolved around this fire ritual. That is the oldest ritual that has survived. And it is still very important because that gives the idea that of a sacrifice. So it is known as yagna. Fire is just a symbolic thing. What we offer is what you sacrifice, and fire purifies everything. So you put everything into fire. That's the idea. But the basic idea is it involves sacrifice. So the whole cosmos, everything is built on sacrifice. Every action, noble action of mankind is somebody has to sacrifice. So the more you sacrifice, the more you get. That's the idea of yagnas. So in among the yagnas, according to Sri Krishna, you can do many yagnas. Ashwamedha, there are so many very elaborate rituals. People think the more they spend, the more rituals they do, they are gaining merit. No, but Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, among all the yagnas, Japa yagna is the greatest yagna. So the simplest and the best way, if technique, which is easy, which does not require a lot of elaborate rituals. You need so many things to do puja and other things. But to do japa, you don't need anything. So japa yagna is the king of all yagnas. So that develops willpower. All the yagnas, in fact, help to develop willpower. So the easiest and the best is repetition of the holy name. Yeah. And any discipline, see, for example, I'm not saying repetition, even a simple thing like doing some yogasanas regularly or doing some exercises for a very long period of time, it keeps you healthy. Physically, at least, it keeps you healthy. So that shows that regular practice, regular discipline, a disciplined thing done over and over again, whether it is japa or physical exercise, that leads to development of willpower. If you do it physically, then your physical willpower endurance increases. If you do it mentally, that is why they say japa should be done mentally, not even loudly. Then it will definitely benefit your lips and your talking and your speech and other things. But if you do it mentally, it strengthens the mind or strengthens the will. Okay? One more. Hmm. Who says? What? How can we? If, through japa. Oh, the same thing. Okay, it is not connected to the previous one. Okay. So how can we remove the bad effects of past karma? According to Buddhism, by doing good karma. They have a very simple, that is why they say keep on doing continuously good things, thinking good thoughts. And that way, it is a very effective way, actually, especially if you don't believe in a personal God. So you should remember that Buddha did not want to enter into the discussion of either a personal God with form, without form. So Buddha had to give a solution without a personal God. So he said, do good deeds. Then you don't have to believe. Whereas if you are theistic, if you have faith in a particular God, whether it is Jesus, Buddha himself has become a God for many theistic Buddhistic sects. There are many Buddhistic sects which accept Buddha as a savior, as a uh, who can shower his compassion by repeating his name. So theism has entered Buddhism, though Buddha himself did not feel it is necessary to believe in a God. But anyway, they also believe that by doing good deeds, you can reduce the impact of the past karma. Because good causes, definitely it will cancel the effect of the bad karma. So that is very logical. But according to the mantra tradition, as they believe, and as it is true, because it has been its efficacy has been verified by so many saints, so many bhakti saints, especially whether it is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or you go to the Maharashtrian saints, the Gujarati saints, everywhere in North India also, Mirabai, everybody has praised this method because it has worked for them. Not only them, it has worked for a large number of people. That is repetition, mental repetition of the holy name. That, along with the very nature of the vibration of a holy name, is enough to cancel the vibrations which our evil karma or evil samskaras have stored in our own unconscious mind. So it is one way of cleaning that. So japa can be very effective in this method. The question was how to remove the impacts of our past karma. So one need not worry because there are many ways. All the yogas are meant to remove the effects of the past karma. So we'll conclude now. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat